We started in Copenhagen. Our second city was Berlin. Then we are in Munich, Paris, London, Vienna right now. That's a really good question. So the reason we started in Copenhagen is because I don't know if you knew this, but Denmark has a very rich history of co-living. It started in the early 1960s, actually. And, there are a lot of families and retirees that live together. And then there's also a huge emphasis on Danish, design, etc., that we really want to get influenced by. So I would say that around 80% of our housing is very consistent from city to city. And it's really rooted in the Danish way of living and the design and the experience. So it's very high-end furniture to creating what's called a hygge environment in the house, making it very cozy. And then the last 20% is tailored towards the city that we are in. So yeah, for us, it's been really amazing to take the consistency, because we have members moving from one city to another, and they feel like it's so easy to settle into LifeX just because, it's very similar from Berlin to Copenhagen. It's like, oh, it's sleeping in the same bed, right? So that's been really amazing for members.
Christine here, the host of the Coliving Code Show, also the co-founder of Kndrd, which is a global search and discovery platform for co-living, so you can find your perfect co-living space anywhere in the world through our directory. And before we launch into this week's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to ISL Furnishings, a brand created through interspace living. They exist in the exciting space where design meets function, and Interspace parlayed its success in commercial grade unit furniture and conceived an elevated offering. They strongly believe in the co-living industry, and they already work with some of the larger brands like Quarters and Star City. ISL Furnishings was founded with a mission to bring your brand to life. Their goal is to revolutionize the unit furniture experience. Every venue has its own voice. They exist to clarify that voice, interpret your brand vision, and deliver superior quality on time, every time. Their website link is in the show notes. Definitely check them out. Ritu is the co-founder of LifeX, an American currently based in Copenhagen. Moving from San Francisco to Copenhagen, she struggled finding the right place that they could call home. In the end, together with her husband, they've decided to rent a big flat in the city center, turn it into a Nordic-style home, and was full in a couple of days, and that marked the start of LifeX. In Europe, LifeX is one of the largest networks of co-living homes, which provides the needs of expat young professionals who are moving across continents and countries. LifeX helps them build their lives around their careers with flexible membership where long-term commitment is not required. They have locations already in Copenhagen, Vienna, Berlin, Paris, Munich, and London. They are rapidly expanding. This is an amazing conversation, so enjoy. Okay, this week we are bringing on Ritu with LifeX. She's over in Copenhagen, Denmark. They have multiple locations, so we will go over how many locations they have, which cities they're in. So Ritu, welcome to the show this week.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to join.
Great. So let's start with just the genesis of how LifeX started. You guys started 3 years ago?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we started in 2017. And my husband and I started the company together. We both come from technology background and have been working in technology industry for over a decade. And then, realized that we wanted to do something that was at the intersection of technology and real product. And that's how LifeX started. So
nice. And then name this, you guys are in 6 cities now, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we are in 6 cities, 5 countries, and then, we'll be expanding into many more. So,
in which cities are you guys in?
We started in Copenhagen. Our second city was Berlin. Then we are in Munich, Paris, London, Vienna right now.
Nice. And you guys are in some major cities. And I know there's a lot of co-living happening in Berlin, actually. Is there a city, in your opinion, where's LifeX most popular? In which city?
That's a good question. Actually, I wouldn't say that there's one city it's more popular than in another. What I would say is that people choose co-living for different purposes in different cities. So, for example, what we noticed is that in London, there is already a history of people flat sharing, is what they call it there, right? So for them, it's really easy to understand co-living, and they're just like, oh, this is similar to flat sharing, but completely serviced and furnished. Whereas if you look at a city like Paris, there's not that rich history of flat sharing, but people are choosing co-living because it's really difficult to get housing in Paris. You actually have to submit a lot of paperwork to landlords, especially if you're new to the city. You have to buy a lot of appliances and furniture. So it's a lot more tedious process. So co-living makes it a lot more convenient and flexible for people. And then when you're new in a city like Paris, it's hard to have a community around you. So people also choose it for the community side of it too. So I would say that there's no one city where it's more popular, but it is interesting to see the reasons why people choose co-living. It can be a little different city to city. For us, our mission is to make anyone feel at home anywhere in the world, and it is around connecting cities. So it has been really from the get-go of our DNA to expand into multiple cities. The more cities we connect, the more valuable we get for our members.
And then in each city, do you guys kind of take the essence of that city and kind of push it through your concept, or does your concept stay standard in each city?
That's a really good question. So the reason we started in Copenhagen is because I don't know if you knew this, but Denmark has a very rich history of co-living. It started in the early 1960s, actually. And, there are a lot of families and retirees that live together. And then there's also a huge emphasis on Danish, design, etc., that we really want to get influenced by. So I would say that around 80% of our housing is very consistent from city to city. And it's really rooted in the Danish way of living and the design and the experience. So it's very high-end furniture to creating what's called a hygge environment in the house, making it very cozy. And then the last 20% is tailored towards the city that we are in. So yeah, for us, it's been really amazing to take the consistency, because we have members moving from one city to another, and they feel like it's so easy to settle into LifeX just because, it's very similar from Berlin to Copenhagen. It's like, oh, it's sleeping in the same bed, right? So that's been really amazing for our members.
No, in LifeX, I've seen your brand. That's why I'm so excited we finally got you on the show. You have a really strong brand. It's exciting to see you grow so fast into all these different cities. And because you're originally from the States, right?
That's correct. I'm American, living in Europe at the moment. I moved here 5 years ago. It was supposed to be a 1-year stint, and 5 years later, I'm still here. So yeah.
Europe is wonderful. That's I wanted to stay there too last year. I'll be back. I'll be back for sure. Yeah. And are you guys gearing up to raise any capital? Have you already raised?
Well, we've done a few rounds of fundraising, and we actually just closed a round of funding about a month and a half, 2 months ago. We just haven't made a press release around it yet, but you guys will hear soon. So we are very excited about the next stage of growth for LifeX.
See, everybody listening, especially investors, another operator that closed funding during COVID.
Yeah.
So, which is congratulations. That's amazing. Speaking of COVID, what did you guys implement immediately and then ongoing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Actually, I think what has been really spectacular is that COVID has shown the resilience of our model in some ways, right? Housing is something that's such a basic need for people that no matter what happens in society, right, people still need a place to live and a place to belong in. So for us, our model was really resilient. That's one thing that we realized from the beginning of COVID. Of course, we had a few members that had to defer their start date, etc. And then for us, the big thing was there are 3 things that we really needed to do. One was communication, like making sure that we are very well versed in what's happening in each of our cities and making sure that we are communicating regularly with our members to make them feel safe, right? So that they have the latest information around what's happening with COVID on the ground in their city. Second thing for us was to really make sure our employees felt safe. So that was also quite critical. We have cleaners that go into apartments for cleaning, etc. So we wanted to make sure that they felt safe around what was happening during that time frame. And each city, we had to take different decisions based on quarantining, non-quarantining, lockdown, non-lockdowns. And so those were very important to us. And the third one was community, right? Making sure that people still felt like they were part of a community, and they didn't get, working from home. There's a lot of things, anxieties around this pandemic, especially in the beginning of it, right? And for us, what we noticed was that a lot of our members were really happy living with others because they were working from home, and then now they were not alone, and they actually bonded even more. They were cooking together, they were doing groceries together, they were helping each other out in their work environment. So I think for us it actually turned out to be a positive thing. But those were three main things for us to focus on. One was rapid communication, making sure that we are really taking that into account. Second was the employees, making sure they felt safe. And third was the community. Another thing on the third one, on the community side, we did very early on was to implement policies for new members, in terms of what do we expect. So we, really raised our interviews. So instead of doing one, we did multiple interviews with our members. They got to also talk to the house before they arrived. We required them to quarantine before they came in. So we actually really stepped up our game around that. We had them sign forms saying that they do not have COVID, etc. So we really wanted to make sure that our community felt like they were safe.
That's amazing. And so explain the model that you guys run. It's individual homes, like how many people in the home total?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for us, we really believe in family style co-living, which means that you have really large apartments. So on average, our apartment sizes are around 200, 250 meters square. And you'll have anywhere from 4 to 8 people sharing the apartment. Some of our large ones are 350, 400 meters square as well. And that's where you'll have around 8 people. And the idea is that, there's a large living area, large kitchen, and then, each individual has their own room. What we do is we lease our properties up until now. That's what we've been doing. And then we, of course, with the Danish design, the hygge, our technology product on top of it, and the community aspect. And then the members have a membership fee that they pay per month to be part of it. So, yeah.
How many beds total?
We have total around 400 beds in LifeX. Yeah, we don't count beds actually because we think that's a very horrible way of looking at it. We actually say members, how many members we have and rooms that we have. So, yeah.
Got it. Yeah, because you guys don't have any. Yeah, so they each have their own rooms. So you don't
That's
double up on. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
No. It's mainly catered towards professionals. So most of our members, they're between the ages of 25 and 40. And it's really around people that can get their own places to live, but they're choosing to live with others to get something more out of it. So our apartments are very high end, very great furniture. So things that you would not want to buy by yourself because they're so expensive, but then it makes sense when they're sharing it with others. And then our members also choosing it because of the sustainability angle to it. Right.
And then when you guys say, so you've done master leases all the way up until now, in the future, will you continue doing those, or will you do a management agreement? Are you guys going to buy property?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we are exploring all of the three, and we are now looking and doing some of the managed agreements too as a company. So there'll be some more announcements around that coming forward. And then in terms of property buying, I think we are also looking into that as well. So I can't really, unfortunately, say much around it. But I think up until now, our growth has been really great with leasing. But we know that as we go to the next level, we are doing some other things. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys, what's great about your model too, is you guys just have a 3-month minimum, right?
That's correct. And we have a 3-month minimum because we want it to be a home for people. So it's not, you cannot come into LifeX for a night or 2 nights or even for a month. You have to be there a minimum of 3 months because that's a very big part of our community, right? So.
No, I think that's the 90-day mark is like when they really feel like plugged in and they know everybody and they're comfortable. And so I definitely agree with that. But however, they can jump, like, could they move sooner to another LifeX property if they have? Oh, no.
No.
Interesting.
So you have to be there for a minimum of 3 months. And it's also because we are a housing product. Most of the cities that we operate in, we are residential housing product. And most of our members actually, well, all our members, they register their addresses at LifeX. So in order for it to be your home, you have to be there at least for 3 to 6 months. So some cities actually it's 6 months, not even 3. Yeah.
And here's we might have talked about this on a previous show before, but do you guys, and we do that, so we have family style co-living because we're in a big home and there's 6 of us.
Okay,
and
cool.
we always have a wine and cheese event with all the neighbors, not with our residents too. With the neighbors when we move in, because they kind of get a little thrown off, like, okay, there's all these adults moving into one house. What's going on? Do you guys do, like, how do you, when you move into a neighborhood, how do you kind of get to know the neighbors and explain the concept to them?
That's a really good question, actually. So for us, we have been quite lucky in the sense that most of the places that we've been in, they've been very, high end. So they're very educated, high end. The neighbors have been super happy with LifeX. We've had events where we opened it up for the community, where we invite the neighbors, let them know about who we are, etc. And we leave it to the members. If they would like to do something with their neighbors, they are welcome to plan those things as well. But I think in our area, I mean, we've had, like, most of the neighbors have felt okay about LifeX just because they see that as young professionals, right? It's not students that are living there. And these are people that are, coming home for wine and cheese and dinner and are not necessarily having parties till 2, 3 a.m. in the night, right? So I think that's probably the biggest thing for the neighbors, is to make sure that the people that are there are respecting the community and some of the, the lifestyles in some ways, right?
No, that's perfect. No, and I agree 110%. Most of these are not throwing parties. And some even do it before before everybody moves in, they'll do an event before. Those are the more like pod living, they've got 100 people going into a building in the neighborhood. So of course the neighbors are probably a little more concerned. So they'll actually do it before they move in. But professionals, then they kind of understand what's going on for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then do you personally live in the concept?
Yeah, actually, we started LifeX because we were looking for something like this. When I moved to Copenhagen, I didn't know how long I was going to stay here, and it was really crazy. I mean, you had to sign a long lease and you had to commit and buy furniture. And I was like, well, there has to be something a little bit more flexible. So that's why we actually started LifeX, was for ourselves. And so we've been living at LifeX for around 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And we had to recently move because we are now co-living with our little 4-month-old son. So we just moved away about 5 months ago from LifeX. Yeah. And we miss it dearly. Nice. We still go to our old house and have dinners with our housemates, etc. So, yeah.
Nice. And then what kind of events do you guys, and again, I know maybe it's a little bit different. So maybe talk about the events you guys hosted pre-COVID and now during COVID.
Yeah, it's a good question again. So in terms of events, I mean, we have representation in each city where we do a lot of in-person events to, there are three types of things that we really focus on. One is micro apartments, making sure that the house feels like they're bonded together. So whenever there's a new member that comes in, they have welcome dinner. Actually, LifeX provides the budget for it. And then we encourage Sunday dinners, or once a week or once in 2-week dinners for each of the houses to have. So that's at the micro level. That's really important to us. Then the second thing we do is we try to connect few apartments, and we connect people based on hobbies. So these are more of like, 15, 20 people groups and events that we do together in some ways. So hobbies could be anything like poker nights to people going climbing together to, cooking together, etc. In some ways. And then we also have some macro community-led events. In the micro one, or in the middle one, I forgot to say, we also host events for members joining at certain months so that they can meet others that are new to LifeX as well. So there's different types of things we do there. And then on the macro side, it's, things like we have Christmas parties that we throw, and then summer parties. And then even our members do things like fundraising. Just recently, few of our members decided that they really wanted to have a fundraising event for Lebanon for what happened there. So they did a yoga in the park and had food that they cooked, Ethiopian food. And then they sold the boxes of food for proceeds to go to Lebanon. And then LifeX actually provided cocktails and drinks for everybody. So it's a really great way for our community to come together and then also give to another, cause in some ways. So those are three things that we really focus on: is micro, and then a little bit larger, and then a large community events. In terms of COVID, definitely we had amazing learnings. What we found out was that virtual events are an amazing way to connect cities. So that's something that we really started, and it took off. So we had pub nights and poker nights with people joining from different cities, getting to know each other. We had a cocktail competition with different houses. So yeah. So it was really fun to do some of these other things as well. Yeah.
So what is your favorite part about co-living?
For me, co-living, one of the favorite parts for me is the community side of things, right? So meeting people from various different backgrounds. At LifeX, we have 40 plus nationalities at LifeX, people from different countries, different experiences. And it's amazing to meet people with different perspectives, because in today's world, you can get such tunnel vision, and you can get information that's very tailored to you. And I think you forget to see and understand people that might have had different upbringing from you, or might come from a different country, or have different food and culture. And so I think that's probably one of the most powerful things about co-living for me, is the fact that we can really connect people from various different backgrounds together. And bring people together based on their common interest of just being open, right? Open to learning, and open to growing, and open to be more tolerant in some ways, right, around the world. So, yeah.
No, that's great. And I've experienced exactly the same in all my years of co-living with people around the world. No, you're exactly right. It just opens your eyes up to a whole new world, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And so, again, you guys have scaled, 400 residents in 3 years.
Members.
Members, sorry. What type of technology are you guys using in order to help facilitate that?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people don't realize this, but both Suna, my co-founder, and I, we come from tech backgrounds. So from the start of LifeX, technology has been the backbone of everything we do. We actually have a Lifx app that members get when they get accepted into LifeX, and it has everything from, all the contracts, processing, signing, all that is done electronically to the app. To we have something called a move-in experience that they go through as well. to all the social events, to it's almost like a Facebook feed, so we can actually communicate with our members on an ongoing basis with them. So those are the things that we do from our app. You also get to communicate with our operations team, so you can open issues, etc. On the back end side, our ops team has a full way of managing workflow with our technology. So it's quite elaborate, actually, in terms of what we have done. And the reason we did this was because not only we wanted to make sure that there was efficiency in a model like this, because it is, let's face it, it's very service oriented, and if unless and until you can capitalize on technology and make it as efficient as possible, you will not have a very sustainable business model. So I think that was our focus, to make sure that we made it such. And then the second was that our members were seeking that. They're technology oriented, like it was very easy for them to grasp it, and it made our community even more robust. So technology is on our backbone of everything that we do. So we have a iPhone, Android app that you download and you start using, and it's made in React Native, so it's quite easy to iterate on. So, yeah.
And then do you guys have any IoT? Like, does it plug into any of like smart home features?
Good question. So not yet. That's something we are really looking towards moving. The thing is that so far, all the apartments that we've had, they're in different buildings, and most of our apartments, they come from, they're very well made, but they're all I don't know, different styles and designs in some ways, right? Because of different landlords. So we haven't had a chance to, on a very scalable way, roll out an IoT experience, but we have experimented in some of our cities. So in London, for example, we have automatic locks, etc., in some of our areas, but not a LifeX wide rollout yet. That's something we really look forward to doing. So.
And then as far as growth, what's the future for LifeX? Like the next year, 5 years?
Yeah. So for us, I mean, like I said, our mission is to make anyone feel at home anywhere in the world. So it is about really growing more in the cities we are in, also looking at new cities, and then also expanding our business model. So like I said, I mean, we started out doing leasing, but now we are actually dabbling or firmly grounding ourselves in other ways of scaling this concept, and we are super excited because we can see a lot of interest from the real estate world. They're realizing the importance of the service oriented living in some ways, and they can see that there's this is what the future of living is going to be like. So I think for us, we are just excited to work with some very innovative real estate partners to try out different models. And then, eventually after 5 years, I think we would love to go into the retiree community, the empty nesters. We get so many requests around that. And then someday we'll be into families. We don't know. So let's see. I mean, I think for us, it's a brand that we are going to keep growing and evolving and making sure that it really meets the need of a lot of different constituents in some ways. So, yeah.
No, and when you guys do the family one, then you guys can move back into a LifeX building.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, right now we're just like, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to share some of the chores and, also spend time with another family, when the baby's in bed, like then what do you do, right? Then you're tired to go somewhere. But wouldn't it be nice to have a glass of wine with another family that you're living with? So
yeah, and share childcare and baby, and that's why people ask, well, why can't families co-live? And it's like, you'd have to like baby proof the home and, do these things. So it makes more sense if it was all families co-living together.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think when you do family co-living, I think you definitely have to look at the concept in a different angle. And you want to make sure that it's also an area that's, where you have, maybe it's more townhouse style, maybe there's gardens, etc. There's different type of furniture. You might need to model it a little differently than what you would for young professionals. So, when we get into family, we want to make sure that we do it the right way. And that's why we haven't done it, because we know there's so much growth and opportunity in even young professionals for us right now. So we'll be busy with this for the next 5 years.
That's what it sounds like. Is there any cities you guys are about to go into that you can announce yet?
I unfortunately can't announce yet. I think there's a lot of work being done in terms of what's next, but I think just stay tuned on that side. I think for us right now has been really scaling into the cities that we are in, and then as we get into new cities, we'll let you guys know.
And then which city has the most members? Maybe Copenhagen, because you guys started there?
That's correct. Yeah, Copenhagen was our first city, so it has the most members, but our other cities are catching up very quickly as well. So, yeah.
Got it. And then let me see. I had a couple last questions for you. First off, thank you for coming on the show, because I keep getting requests for more females, and we have a couple coming up. We just had one recently, so yes, it's been nice. A few people have asked me to bring on more females onto the show. So my last question for you is, where do you see, if we fast forward 10 years, so to the year 2030, where do you see co-living as an industry?
I think it's interesting. When we started, we have been focusing on young professionals with co-living, because we know that they have been the early adopters of co-living. They're used to it from being in dorms in their university period to, then getting into work mode and realizing that they want to live around people. They don't want to live by themselves, right? So that has been a really great area for us to expand into, and we are very focused on that. We want to make sure we provide a stellar product experience when we do it. But I think when you look at 10 years from now, I think we can see co-living becoming more and more mainstream, right? The society is moving away from when it was the industrial era in the last 60 years, it was very much about individuals and me and the, sprawling suburbia. But we see that shifting, even with Corona, you could see that people are getting more and more depressed because they're at home by themselves. There's no society community around them, so you can see that people feel a very innate need to belong and innate need to belong to a community. So I think that's what you'll see becoming more and more mainstream as the next 10 years go through. So our thinking is that we'll see a lot more co-living of not just young professionals, but also families and retirees and different age groups of people living in different ways together. Because I don't think, living in a suburban sprawl is sustainable for us as humans. So, yeah.
I agree with that for sure. And then and I think COVID even pushed that movement even further, right? For sure. People want to be in community more. Are you guys hiring by chance?
We are actually. We just, hired somebody in the tech side of things. We hired a new head of marketing role, somebody else in marketing. We are now looking at somebody in accounting. Believe it or not, there's a really robust finance side of things in co-living. So as we are expanding, that's one of the areas we're looking at. But I think we have lots of roles that keep coming open. So yeah.
Great. No, we've already found a couple people some positions through the show, which is rad. So
oh, really?
Now I'm going to start asking that. I'm going to start asking that question, especially because most of these jobs are remote. So, and there's people that need work. So yeah, I think I'm going to start asking every operator that question. So yeah, Ritu, thank you again so much for coming on this week. I really appreciate it. It was awesome to hear more about LifeX.
Yeah, same here. And you're doing a great job, Christine, with bringing the co-living sector together. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you want to learn more about co-living, you could check out my book on Amazon, The Co-Living Code. And of course, if you're looking for the perfect software to power your co-living concept, check out Kndrd.io, Kndrd.io.